Good evening and welcome to Toon Talk Sunday session. And today we're joined by former player Brian Kerr. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks very much for asking me.
Excellent. Just before I go on, really, it's from myself and a lot of fans around my age. Obviously, we just say miss the entertainers or partly remember it. And for me personally, growing up was all about the Bobby Robson days. And obviously, going a lot is what we're going to talk about tonight, about your time at the club around them. Just to personally thank you from myself, because to be honest, that's the last time when I remember Newcastle actually being a good footballing side. Excited to actually go and watch the match. So I think it's a lot of the fans personally thank you for a lot of their memories. So I mean, when we go to the pub now, we talk, we've got to go back at least 15, 20 years to remember good times at Newcastle United. So really thank you so much for their memories as well.
Nah, for the small part I played in the games, I think it was exciting to play in as well. It was always a joy to play in as a player, and I can see why it was exciting for fans because being on the pitch, it was exciting to play in. So it is, and I'm sure the good times are just round the corner again. It seems that way anyway. So
yeah,
not too
long
until we get them back.
So how did the move all come around to Newcastle? Was it kind of getting scouted or a move?
There was actually a friendly match. I'd played a wee bit for Rangers up here, and there was a friendly against the Newcastle side. Briefly played in that, played well. The scout asked me to come down, and I remember being invited to a Monday night football game against West Ham. My dad had been brought down. He was wined and dined in the boxes and stuff. My brother was ball boy for the game, and I think as soon as I left that night, it just felt right. You see the atmosphere in the stadium. You see the way that the team played, and the sort of the way they looked after my family just felt like, it felt right. It felt like the place to be and somewhere I wanted to be part of.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, obviously, when you signed the contract to sign for Newcastle United, that must have been a great feeling at the time as well. Obviously, moving to the club and where we were around the Premier League at the time and kind of push on, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, briefly when I was coming down, it was the Kevin Keegan era when I was coming down at the very beginning, and I remember watching the Barcelona night. I remember watching the 5-0 Man United game, and to see that live was just something that you had to be part of, wanted to be part of. At that point, you're a million miles away, and you don't know if you're ever going to get there. But just to be part of the club felt like it was something I wanted to do. And thankfully I did go on and make a few appearances, but I think just coming down and seeing the Keegan era just made it feel right, and from there to go in and work under Bobby as well, it was exciting times for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, going to the early, obviously 2000, 2001, the early days when you're getting into the first team, I mean, just going back to that squad at the time, obviously you had the likes of obviously Shea Given, Shearer, obviously Solano, Bellamy, the players like there. What was it like training with them day in, day out?
Yeah, it was amazing. Just looking at it now, I think when you see it, there was a real spine of British players, and I think a lot of the Premier League teams have got away from that now. We had some excellent foreign players as well, but the spine and the real drive came for the British guys, and Shearer, Given, Gary Speed, Jennings, Dyer, just to name just a few of them. To see that now and the way it was put together by the managers at the time and by Bobby at the time. He just knew, he just had a way. He wanted young, hungry players that were obviously, most of them were internationals in that way. And he added real quality foreign players in there as well, with Roberto Solano and Laurent Robert and that as well. So, it wasn't just the British, you had the real quality to add into that. And he just knew how to get the right blend. And that was shown on the pitch with performances and the way the fans got behind the team, but the way that the team allowed the fans to go and enjoy their games and be excited, because it felt like it was 99% attacking and only the little bit of it was a lot of forward play and exciting to play in, but as I say earlier, it must have been exciting to watch as well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned them wide players there, obviously like Robert and Solano in your training, obviously in them positions as well. I mean, what was it like watching them in training and learning from them two type of players?
I mean, I think Roberto Solano was one of the most technically gifted players I'd seen, or certainly played with live. Just unbelievable talent. His crossing and his ability was unbelievable. And I think I'm sure Alan Shearer was grateful that he was in the team a lot of times because of his quality as well. He set up a hell of a lot of the goals that Alan scored in the time there. Robert as well done the same on the other side and chipped in with the goals as well. And that was one thing about them. They would set up things, they would create things, and they would go on and chip in with their goals as well. So both all round very good players, but complemented exactly what we needed at the time. Alan Shearer was in the box and he wanted ammunition to score goals, and they gave him that.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, obviously, training with them at the time, who was the kind of leaders out of that? Obviously, like you say, there's some big names in there, but who was the main leaders in that group?
I think the main ones always stick out. Gary Speed and Alan Shearer.
Yeah.
Everything about the two guys epitomised the club, epitomised the people they were, and they drove at that time. The identity of Newcastle United. They knew what the fans wanted. They knew what we had to give them on the pitch, and they drove everything about it, whether that be in training and the standards they set, or the way they played on a Saturday, and made sure that there was no slackers in the team, and they knew that we had to go and excite the supporters, but we had to go and make sure that if we weren't at best, then at worst case scenario we were given 100%, and like I said, they too drove that, because everything they done day to day, match to match, showed.
Yeah, I mean, around that time as well, obviously we challenging high up in the Premier League, going well in the cups and everything like that, as well. I mean, do you think the main success was back there? Do you think it was more the squad or the manager, or kind of just everything just gelling together at that time?
Yeah, I think a bit of everything. I think the manager knew he's obviously very close to the Newcastle people and stuff. He knew what they wanted, so he built a squad round about what the fans wanted to see, but also a squad that complemented each other as well. Like I said, the good wide players that are going to put good balls in the box is vital. There's no point in having a great number 9 if you're not going to have anybody putting the ball in the box for him. And then he had attacking midfield running players like Kieran Dyer, Jermaine Jenas, Gary Speed, who had also got in the box and got on the end of things as well. So there was goals that came from all over the pitch. And that's what we were known as at the time. We were an attacking team that wanted to score as many goals as possible. And sometimes scores get a bit crazy at times, but in a good way and an exciting way. And that probably started back in the Kevin Keegan era, when the Liverpool Newcastle games, and it continued under Bobby, but probably we were a wee bit more solid at the back than we were, and we managed to get ourselves up there really challenging again. And as I said, we challenged a very good, I think it was Man United side again at the time, and Arsenal's and these ties were up there as well. So it was a strong league, but we certainly held their own and challenged them all the way to the end.
No, definitely. Making us laugh there with the Newcastle Liverpool games, because I'm trying. Obviously, my son, all he's seen is kind of Steve Bruce, Ashley. He's only 5, so I bought him the big heads and little bodies. So we wanted the Newcastle team, and obviously, who could we buy to play against them? So I get the Liverpool, and I'm going through, and he's been watching that like on YouTube and stuff. He's absolutely loving it at the minute. He's learning all the players. He loves it. And obviously, definitely. And in that season as well, obviously, when you're doing well for reserves, I mean, back then, looking at it wasn't just the first team for me, for the reserves and the youth team as well. We always seem to do well around that team, and now we just don't seem to have the players kind of pushing on, doing well in the reserves. Could you say that your chances were starting to get towards the first team?
Yeah, I mean, even when you look back at the reserves, the games were played at Kingston Park at is it Newcastle Falcons or whatever, play there. And even looking back at the team, I mean, Sean Lamiobi came through that, James Cottinger was there, the Caldwell brothers, myself, David Baharo, Jamie McLean. There's a number of young boys all pushing and all driving each other, and had a very similar mindset and idea to what the first team had. We drove each other, we didn't let our standards drop, and we made sure that everybody knew what the end game was. We all wanted to get to that first team. But that was driven as well with great coaches, with Tommy Craig, with John Carver, with Tommy Burns just before that. Again, all good coaches, all knew what the people in Newcastle wanted again, because of the influence and relationships I've had with the club previously. So they knew what was wanted, they knew what it needed to do, and they gave us the best possible chance to get there by the high demands and high standards they drove at reserve team football and youth team football. And that put us in good stead to then try and get in the first team squad. And there was some great games and some enjoyable ones, and even we had some great crowds even going to reserve games back in the day as well.
No, I mean, obviously doing well in the reserves, and then along comes your debut. Was against Coventry, wasn't it? You know what I mean? What was it like getting there? Did you kind of find out midweek, or was it last minute thing where you were in the squad, or?
Yeah, so that one I almost don't even consider it being a debut, because
Yeah,
it was like a very quick cameo. I don't even know, by the time I got on the pitch, I think maybe, I don't even know if I got a touch actually, but there might have only been 2 or 3 touches until the phone. So I didn't really ever look at that as my debut, although it was at the time. It was amazing getting on and being part of things, and being round about the squad. But I think at that point you just want to really, give something back, or be involved and give something on the
yeah,
pitch. So again, I just kind of, even if anybody asked me, I always put it down as the Liverpool game being my debut, and that was
yeah.
not. It obviously is on paper.
No, and I mean, going on to the next is obviously the 2002-2003 season, which is quite the main season for yourself. I mean, how did pre-season go? Did you must have worked really hard in pre-season to impress Bobby Robson to kind of give you the chance in that season? Was that how it started in pre-season, was it?
Yeah, so pre-season was quite quiet actually. The beginning of the season was pretty quiet for a lot of us. I think Stephen Colwell had maybe broken a wee bit quicker,
Yeah.
and he'd had a few performances under Rutul, and then took that into Bobby Robson. And it wasn't really until December. Actually, the story goes that the young boys, the reserves and youth team, were sent home for Christmas and New Year, as we normally were. Got a couple of weeks break, and I was one of them that had been kind of let go home and enjoy Christmas and New Year. And I think by about the 27th, I'd got a phone call to say come back down. I think
Wow.
Solano had maybe been injured at the time, and there was a few players short, and they wanted to add 1 or 2 to the group for training. Came back down, trained a few days. And it was just like, I think it was New Year's Eve. John Carver, I remember John Carver pulled me and saying, be prepared to play tomorrow night against Liverpool. And I was like thinking, nah, this playing. I thought maybe bench at absolute best. And then sure enough, the manager then tells me, you're playing tomorrow, be prepared, get a good sleep tonight, and you're in. And as you could probably imagine, I stayed actually on the quayside at the time. So with the fireworks and the parties going on
Oh
round
yeah.
about us, and the nerves of a big game, live on TV against Liverpool on New Year's Day, didn't make sleeping too easy.
No, definitely. I mean, going just like you said, you went away obviously to enjoy Christmas. I mean, that must have been kind of a Christmas present for yourself to get that call to say you're coming down to train the next, all of it then into the plane against Liverpool. That must have been amazing for yourself at the time.
Oh, it was crazy. It was a crazy few days to going from enjoying time with the family, which is amazing as well, to then going and playing in front of a full house at St James's against Liverpool was almost like surreal, considering from the 27th I was sitting in the house having probably Christmas dinner and Boxing Day food with the family, to then going to make my debut just a few days later. So no, it was something that I'll never forget. The full build up, everything that happened, especially in that scenario, how things went about. And then the sleepless night the night before the game, and then eventually getting to the game as well, which has always been difficult. I think more difficult when you know, and then you've got a full day before
Yeah.
the game starts at night to think about it, and it's going through your head, and all you're thinking about is get through this game. Don't make mistakes. Hopefully, make it. I do well enough for the manager and the fans to be happy with the performance, and that's just you just don't want to make that mistake on the night. And thankfully, came through the game pretty well, and we won 1-0, and it was amazing.
No, I mean, like you say, just getting called up to come into the game, and it's always seems to be special nights playing at St James Park, but even more of the Christmas New Year period, the atmosphere just seems to be that more electric. I mean, you're coming an hour, 2 hours before the game. What was your feelings kind of pulling up at St James, going to the changing rooms? Was it nerves or more excitement?
I think nerves, excitement. I think you get hot with thousands of different feelings over the course, and you just can't wait for the whistle to go, really, because that's when you get a chance to
Yeah,
sit down and enjoy it, because it feels like everything's going 100 mile an hour, and everybody's telling you things to do, and your head's just spinning. But when the whistle goes, you get to relax and enjoy it, and go and hopefully at that point put on a performance, because at the end of the day, it's on the pitch you want to do it. You're just desperate to go out there and say, well, this is what I do anyway, this is what I get paid to do, and this is what, if I want to become a football player, this is what I need to do. So it's almost like just desperate to get the whistle going and get started into it. And like you said, the atmosphere in the place on a Saturday at 3 o'clock special, but I just think there's that wee extra bit in a night game, a 7:45 kick, whether that be European ties or whether it be Christmas and New Year games or whatever. It just, you just get that special under the lights at St James's, full house, as a special thing to be involved in.
No, definitely. I mean, you were playing against obviously one of my favourite players. I think it's just because of the ginger hair and everything. I used to always get called Reese or Scalzi and anything, but you came against Reese. I mean, what was it like playing against him? I know he's a good player, one I always watched.
Yeah, he was very good and constantly worked up and down on the wing, as we know. He wasn't a sit back in left back. He worked the full side and made it a difficult game and a hard game to work in. But I'd like to think over the course of the game, I worked him just as hard as he did me. And like I said, thankfully we got the result. And I think on the night we felt pretty comfortably that, we deserved the result as well. It wasn't a smash and grab at it, and we were comfortable in the game. We won 1-0. I remember Robert's free kick to this day as well. And as I say, it was just great to get 3 points and be able to relax and breathe after the game and enjoy it in a result.
I mean, that's my next question. Obviously, winning 1-0 at home and against Liverpool, it always seems some special games between Newcastle and Liverpool. I mean, what was the feelings as if you came off the pitch, or was it just a blur at the time until you've sat and realised what you've actually just gone out and done?
Yeah, it takes a while, I think, coming off, and again, families in the stands. The supporters are enjoying the result. We go into the changing rooms, and it takes a while. It takes probably the best part of a few days to a week or two to actually really let it sink in. What's happened, especially how it happened. A bit of a whirlwind few days, but a wee bit surreal. But you get to enjoy it. Well, as we all know in football, though, you don't get to enjoy results or performances too long, because the next one's just round the corner and you go from 0 to 0 very quickly. And these are the challenges. You get that one, you enjoy it. You try and soak it up as much as possible, but it almost has to go into the memory bank because the next one's just around the corner. And later on in your career, at some point, you get to think back and enjoy it. But at the times, it's just like, what's the next one now? Because that is, the manager very quickly tells you after the game, focus now is on next match.
Yeah, straight on. Yeah. No, I mean, some of the stats obviously I've picked out as well. Obviously, I've always followed the results, but is it true? I'm sure it was that there were 4 starts for yourself and 4 wins at that time. It was a Tottenham, Leeds, Leverkusen, and I think it was someone else as well. But that must have been kind of amazing for you, like you're starting games and the club's also winning games of football. You must have quite proud of that at the time.
Yeah. What is that? I'd like to take credit for that, but I think the team was so good at the time that probably anybody could have been taking part in winning games. It was an exciting team to play in. You had a lot of players there that were like I said, were driving the team forward, and we had unbelievable players, and we were up the top of the league, winning games. And it seems like when you're winning games, it becomes a habit, and we just found that habit to win games. And the backing of the fans, the way the players felt, the confidence was flying high. Bobby Robson knew how to work every single player, knew how to get the best out of them. And at the time, it just felt like nobody could beat us. It didn't matter who it was, and it didn't matter who was playing. We were going to win games, and that's just how that spell went. And it was an enjoyable time to play in because, like you said there, it just felt like every week was one. Right, was the next game, and we go again, and we won again. And we had European ties, we had league ties, and we felt like at the time, we could really challenge, and it was getting exciting towards the end, but probably just fell a bit short.
Definitely. I mean, like you said, that's what we said at the start. Obviously, with fans back then, it didn't matter if we were playing Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal. We still expect to go and give them a game. Where now you kind of, especially this season, where you're picking out games where we might get 3 points there, we might nick a point there. Where back in them days, doesn't matter who we played, the fans, the squad, the manager, they had the confidence and belief that we'd go out and win any game of football, wasn't
it? Yeah, definite. And it's a combination of what we just speak about: the manager, the fans, the players. The quality of players, I think if any team had Alan Shearer in the team, they had a chance of winning games, because if you put the ball in the box, the chances are it's going in the net, and that's just how it was. When you look at his goal scoring record, and you look at how the goals, the types of goals he scores, it didn't matter if it was a 6-yard box or 25 yards out. There's a chance of scoring a goal.
Yeah.
So as a player playing behind that, it always makes life easier when if we get the ball up there, there's a chance we're winning this game or scoring goals in this game, and that was how it was. But when you've got Craig Bellamy, Gary Speed, Kieran Dyer chipping in with goals as well, Solano. You know, it was exciting times, and it didn't matter if Alan wasn't doing it on the day. Somebody else would come up and take their opportunities, and that's why it was so exciting. It didn't matter if somebody was having an off day. Somebody else would step in and take that upon their shoulders on that given day and get us over the line.
No, definitely. I mean, just before we go on to Champions League night, a lot of people just saying hi, and obviously thank you everyone for watching. Really do appreciate it. If you are new to the channel, please hit subscribe. Also, a message from your number one fan, which is for Mitch McAvoy. Yeah, said you watched it.
15.
Just moving on to Champions League nights. I mean, the first thing when you mention Champions League football, I think you see it as a kid. You stand in your living room, you put the music on. It's that music. What was the feelings building up? You know that you're going to be playing in the Champions League that night.
Yeah, another one, amazing one. Slightly different this time because we didn't know the starting team until the meeting at St James's. We'd go in there for food first, and we didn't know the starting team that night, and really didn't expect it at all. So it was a very calm day. Didn't expect to be playing. Thought a push would have been on the bench, and it was a surprise. I remember we would always go and have something to eat, and Bobby would always have the team under one sheet of the flip charts. So there would always be one sheet in front of the team. So if you could see through the bit of paper, and you had the chance to see. So I remember sitting down. We'd always sit down just before Bobby got there, and you could almost see a few outlines of names, and it seemed like the usual ones, which you knew. Alan Shearer's name was always easy to see and stuff like that. But and I always felt in the midfield, if I ever seen a 4-letter name, it was Kieran Dyer. So I never ever really checked this time, second guess it. But it wasn't until I flipped the chart over and I actually checked the bench first and wasn't on it. I was a wee bit deflated, and then when I looked up into the team, I'd started myself and actually Stephen Caldwell on that night.
Amazing, yeah.
So both they started the game, and it was unbelievable. Like you said previously, we mentioned it. You know, a night kick-off at St James's is special, but a Champions League night kick-off at St James's is something else, and something you never forget. And again, thankfully, we had another convincing 3-1 win, and the guy I spoke about quite often already scored another 3 goals on that night. So.
Was it easier for yourself, kind of not knowing the team a day or two beforehand, just seeing at the last minute and kind of, right, now I've got to switch on, prepare for the game? Was it a bit more easier, do you think, that time?
Yeah, I think as a younger player, sort of breaking yourself into the team, I think probably not knowing and almost just saying, right, go and do it. There's less time to think about. You take up less energy and the sort of thinking about what's going to happen, and you've not got that time scale, so you've only got a short time before kick-off. It makes it slightly easier. I think as an experienced player, you'd rather know roles and responsibilities, who you're playing against, what the team is and stuff like that, because it just, as you get older, you start to know how to focus and how to do all these things. But as a young player breaking in, nobody really gives you that, especially more so then than now. There's a lot more things put in place now for young players dealing with these things and how to prepare best possible. Then it was a wee bit early and these things hadn't come in yet. So I found it easier just finding out later and getting on with it and going straight on the pitch and doing my bit than it was. But as I said, either way, you're just delighted to see yourself in the starting lineup to go and play in the game.
No, that's it. And with the atmosphere as well, obviously, even just yesterday, from where I was sitting, it just sounded like extra really loud for once. And when the players are on that pitch, can you hear that, or are you kind of trying to switch out from that?
I think you hear it before the game, and I think you hear it when they're really driving you forward. When you need something, the one thing at St James's is they're always loud, but when they're they almost try and suck the ball into the goals for you at times. When they really, that when they want a goal or they know how much we need a goal. And especially if you're giving them everything, it's almost like you're doing you a bit in the pitch. We're giving the extra, and that's what they do there. I wouldn't like to be an opposition player coming there because the atmosphere is amazing. It's electric, and especially in the days, when we're winning games and fans and people were getting excited about what's going on. They just knew how to press the button at the right time and get us to, get us over the line when we really needed them. And like I said, I'd like to think that went both ways. When we needed to get them up for things, we would go and excite them and make them enjoy games of football.
Oh, definitely. And what would you say was your best memory of playing at St James's Park?
I think that was it. I think my debut was amazing against Liverpool. Loved every minute of it. But like you said earlier, there it almost becomes a bit of a blur because everything going on. But I think the Champions League one was a special one for everything involved. Family were there. The Champions League music, the coming out to local hero, all these things you don't forget. And then a comfortable win in the end against a very good Leverkusen side as well. And probably I felt over the course of my time that was probably where I felt was my best performance in the games I did play. So I think that's one that I feel was the best.
Yeah, you must feel a lot of pride as well, though. Obviously, with Sir Bobby at the time as manager, obviously giving the chance for your debut, and obviously then put you in a massive game such as the Champions League. Obviously, must be a lot of respect between the players and Sir Bobby at the time.
Oh, I think he was just a giant of a man in every way, wasn't he? He just knew how to make a young player, an old player, an experienced player feel 10 foot tall. But he also knew when it was time to pull you down to the ground, he would do that as well. He just knew how to manage people. But like previously mentioned, he knew what he had to do to make a player suitable to play on the pitch for Newcastle supporters. He knew what they wanted, he knew what he had to get out of the players, and he done everything in his way to get the best out of us as players. And it just got everything about it. And then, like I said, he's the way he built that side, to complement each other was incredible at the time, and continued to do that over a few years.
Yeah.
Players came and went, and he brought in another one to do a very similar job, and pretty much 99% of the time he got it right.
Right. I mean, a couple of players just to mention, and fans are still a bit 50-50 towards him, but for me, he was always one of my favourite players, Craig Bellamy, and you see some good stories and some bad stories in the press where he's had. I mean, what was he like at the club in training? Did he seem to be one of those that wanted to win at everything, from what I've heard?
Yeah, he was, and that wasn't a bad thing at the time. He wanted the best. He could get frustrated, which is understandable when you get to the top end of football and you're at the top of your game. These guys want to go and win things. They want medals. They want trophies, and they wanted to drive everybody over the line as well. And sometimes it can cause a wee bit of conflict because it can almost get too much at times, and that's where speaking briefly earlier that Alan Shearer and Gary Speed and that they looked after the place. They policed what was going on in the changing rooms, and they knew again when it was time to kind of pull Craig down one or two levels and then allow him to go and do his bit. And again, 90% of the time, Craig done his talk on the pitch. He was excellent. He knew how to do things. He worked well off of Alan. He complimented him as well. His running allowed Alan to go and do his bit as well. And I thought he was very good for the club and a very good player over his career. I can see why he frustrated people. I can see why he annoyed people, but that was the type of person he was, and that was his way.
And for you personally, who would you say was the kind of the best player, trainer, day in, day out of the club? Who was the main person that you looked to as the number one person there?
Yeah, I think Alan Shearer's the easy answer due to the fact that his standards were incredibly high. Every single day he gave everything he had. He never walked off a training pitch without scoring his last goal. As far as I remember, that was always his goal. So his last shot, if it wasn't a goal, he kept out until he finished training with a goal. And small things back then just stick with you. And that was one thing I always thought for him was he had it in his head that when he walks off training, his last one was a goal, and it just means that the next day he starts knowing, he's in the right place. And it was a small thing now, and probably I didn't take it in as much at the time, but I think looking back on it now, to give that to any young boys is a great little thing to have, that your last action on the training ground or on a football pitch is that, and that was him. But for me, just because of the position, I was a midfielder. Gary Speed was the number one for me in terms of, he could do the defensive side, he could do the attacking side, he could score goals, he could put his foot in when it mattered. He just had everything, the all-round player. And had an incredible career, and at Newcastle again was brilliant for everything they wanted and just suited the club. I thought everything that epitomises Newcastle United, the fans, the place, the club. Gary Speed had that. As I said, Alan Shearer's the obvious one because he's a local hero and everything about it. But Gary Speed, I thought just fitted in incredibly well. And for me as a midfielder, it was always someone you looked up to in the way he done things.
Yeah. And going back to yourself, obviously, towards the end of the time at Newcastle, I know it was a couple of injuries as well, but could you feel like the time was coming towards an end without the first team opportunities as well?
Yeah, it was a wee bit of my own kind of undoing as well as anything else. I got a few matches, got a few games, and probably got a wee bit itchy feet and just was desperate to start playing. I had a wee spell in, like you said, in 2000, 2001. And then it took a year or so to then start to get a little run in the team. And then illness kept me out of the Chelsea game after that decent run of him. A little illness kept me out of the Chelsea game, and Solano come back in and started playing. And then from there, I found myself out of the team for a wee bit. There was a couple of players come in and signed. I think Janice was maybe there or just coming in, and Dan Ambrose had come in. There was a few players started to come into that area. And I just felt I wanted to really play at that time. I was starting to get to 21, 22 maybe, and I felt, it was time to start playing regular football. So I went and loaned to Coventry, came back, and opportunities were getting harder and harder. And I think by the end of that season, there was a bit of a kind of decision between the club and myself that probably I wanted a wee bit more than they could offer me right now. And it was time to go and start playing, more regular football.
Oh, well. Before moving on from Newcastle, obviously, just going back to Sir Bobby Robson, and I know a lot of times he used to always come and watch you train, and it didn't matter if it was kind of before, during, or after. He always made time for his players. He always stopped and said hello to the fans. And I mean, what type of person was he? Just to work him day in, day out with him.
Oh, he was incredible. Like I said, he just knew how to deal with every single person. He knew how to deal with the personalities. He brought in some real challenging young players that were a sort of crossroads in their career. They were getting into trouble, but they were incredible football players, and probably put all of them in the straight and narrow, put them in the right path to go and have the best career they possibly could have. But that was him. He cared about everybody. It didn't matter what you'd done, who you were, whether you were Alan Shearer, whether you were Brian Kerr, or whoever that. It didn't matter to him. He just wanted to deal with people, and he was a people person. He could make anybody walk out around a room with a smile on their face. It was just the kind of guy he was, and knew how to treat everybody. He never ever walked by. I don't think he walked by anybody I'd ever seen, whether that be a supporter, a security guard, a fan. It didn't matter who it was. He just knew how to make everybody feel great, and done that well. And like I said, built an incredible football team, and knew what it was like to play for the club. But also, I think he probably loved his own team as well, looking after the club for a number of years and doing the job he done.
Yeah, and any funny stories kind of from the training ground or in the changing room before a game from Sir Bobby? I know you've forgotten a lot of people's names at times. Was there any kind of story that sticks out in your mind?
I think that's the obvious ones. I think over the time was the name one. I think was it Peter Schmeichel at the time? He called him Ski Michael. Goalie Ski Michael. I think he had Kevin Sheedy was Gary Speed one day. Sheedy called him Sheedy, and everybody, Alan Shearer and that would have been killing themselves laughing at that, oh, Sheedy. So that was his nickname for a couple of days. Do you know what he done very well? He never ever made it look like it was a mistake. He just kind of kept going with it.
Yeah.
So he was so good at covering it up that it was funny to all us, but he probably just said, I don't know if he knew, and after it, maybe in his room, would be telling us all, I made that mistake there, telling the coaches. He never ever made it look like he made a mistake, although we knew, and had a little chuckle about it. But as I say, he found a way of making a laugh out of any mistakes, any things like that. He would make it, turn it, have a little laugh, a little light-hearted joke about it, especially when it was just before games or in team talks. And it almost settled you and get you prepared for the game again because that was his way of doing things.
I mean, personally for yourself, obviously being involved in the coach and the managing side, did you take anything like you learned kind of from the coaches and Sir Bobby into your management?
Yeah, I think Sir Bobby, man management was absolutely massive. The way he dealt with individuals, every individual as well. Never jumped to conclusions, always gave everybody their time to explain the situation, and waited till he sat down, and everything took him time. But as I say, 99% of the time he made the right decision. Whether that be to stick by you or give you a bit of discipline, but he was very, very good at that, and that is certainly one thing for him that you had to take out. I think for guys like Tommy Craig, and that, it had to be the drive and passion they showed. They always hit their standards high, and that was one thing. Obviously, I worked with Tommy for a number of years at Newcastle through reserves and stuff, and he set his standards incredibly high, and made us set ours incredibly high, and that's probably why quite a few of us ended up having a decent career in the game that worked under him, because he made that, he drove that at a very early age, and didn't let us ever forget it any day or any minute. Any day.
And just obviously going on with your career as well, I always speak to former players, not just about Newcastle. I mean, like you've gone on to obviously do. And I was playing for Newcastle at the time. You've represented your country. That must have been a proud moment for yourself.
Yeah, definitely, and that almost came as a bit of a push as well for my career at Newcastle, because I was getting some international recognition, and felt that I had to be playing. And the manager there at the time told me to be playing in more internationals, I had to go and play regular first football. So that kind of probably added to the itchy feet I was talking about earlier. But again, to represent your country was amazing. And I think when you look back a wee bit at times and say you've played in the Champions League, you've played in the English Premier League, and you've played you've been an international, you kind of think, do you know what, I've done okay, I've done not too bad. So yeah, it's pretty good.
No, I mean, like you say, some of the clubs that you played in Scotland as well, Motherwell, Hibs, and this as well. I mean, any good memories that stick out from your mind from the time that you played in Scotland?
Yeah, I had great memories up here. I think Motherwell was my main one, and one that I really enjoyed. Had a good few years here. The only downfall of that was a bad injury sort of early in my time here, a cruciate knee ligament injury which sort of jeopardised things a wee bit in terms of the amount of games and time I would have liked to have spent here. But spent 3 great years at the club, and worked under another few great managers, Terry Butcher to name one, who again an understudy of Bobby, and you could tell that he'd worked with him and been with him, because he had a very good trait as well in man management and how to make you feel ready and prepared for a game. And you could just tell that the way he worked things, he took so much off Bobby in his time working with him.
And finally, obviously, just a question, obviously, about the club now in Newcastle. I mean, where can you see us going from kind of now 2 years on with the money that we've now got? Do you think that we are going to go places, or do you think it's going to be a bit of a rebuild job?
No, I think there's absolutely no doubt there's exciting times around the corner. I think the challenge is obvious for everybody to see. The big challenge right away is going to be staying in the Premiership, which we all know is not going to be easy. And it's a real difficult job, there's no doubt, for Eddie Howe at the minute, because he's trying to win games. He's also trying to put a style in place. And right now, it's 3 points is all that matters. So he probably doesn't get a real chance to implement his own style and things, because all he's thinking about is 3 points and 3 points only. He might be able to get to relax and do things better in the summer, and really implement how he wants to do things, and bring in players that are going to help do that as well, because also that's another thing, mentioned a bit with Bobby earlier, he signed players to complement others. That's going to be a real challenge in a January window, as we know it's never easy anyway, to go and sign players to complement what's already there, because one, there's not going to be as many players out there, and the options are going to be a lot lighter than normal, and two, the prices are going to be ridiculously high, because everybody knows what Newcastle have now got. So a player that's maybe worth 10 or 15 million is now 30 or 40 million, and it's trying to work out, is that going to be good and beneficial at the club? But at the same time, the priority is to stay in the league, so they've just got to give everything possible. Hopefully get that first, win, or get a win now that puts them on a little run of 3 or 4, and it can easily turn. 3 or 4 wins can make the league and things look so much different. But the results need to start coming quickly, and that is the challenge.
No, that's it. But finally, obviously, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, when we mentioned that you were coming on, a lot of like kind of fans around my age are quite excited. So a lot of questions, obviously, that were coming in, and same again. I mean, a couple of questions that we have been to pass on, obviously, that you've kind of answered already. Obviously, the best player that you've played with, and the other question was just about the fans as well. I mean, what was your experience of the fans at the time? Through pretty much at that time, it was all good times, wasn't it? It wasn't kind of a bad spell where fans were turning. But what was your overall feeling of the fans at the club?
Oh, the fans were incredible. I don't think I look at any other club in the country, England, Scotland, wherever it might be, and I don't see better. I tell my kids all the time. In fact, we do like to get down as much as possible. We try and come down every few months or as much as we possibly can get there. They loved it. I took them at the Man City game only a few weeks ago, which it was great for 5 minutes, and then it kind of took the wind out of the sails a wee bit, because, like I briefly mentioned earlier, the fans are just looking for something to really go and push and back the team, and that's what they've been like for day one. And it's not just that, it's not just their support on the pitch. It's their support in the town centre when you meet them. It's their support walking into the stadium and at training. And for day one, again, I remember Kevin Keegan's era where there was 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 at training at Newcastle down at Durham. It was incredible,
brilliant,
like that. And I don't think anybody really understands, the way the supporters are in there and how passionate they are about it. And you know what? As soon as I heard the finances and the new owners have came in, I thought great, because it's about time somebody comes in and puts real money into a special club, and hopefully they go and reap the rewards over the next 10, 15, 20 years and beyond, and they're up there challenging and winning trophies and back to where they should be and back to where the fans deserve them to be.
No, definitely. Fingers crossed, like you say, just for the former players, like you say, how exciting that they're getting from kind of the takeover, the fans, and we all seem to be kind of all together as united now, isn't it? And it's a good force to go forward.
No, definite. And I think that's one thing, when you've played at Newcastle and you've been involved at the club, no matter how big or how small your contribution has been, you always feel part of it. And that's the way the club makes you feel, and it's the way the supporters make you feel. And it is exciting times. And even now going down there, you feel proud to see them. To see the stadium so big, the fans getting behind the team. You feel part of it, and I don't think that'll ever leave you. I think once you've been part of that club, it never leaves you. You're always there, and you always want them to do well. And it's pretty much after the club that you're at or whatever, it's always the first result you go and check and make sure you're well. And hopefully the results, as I say, pick up over the next few weeks, and they get themselves out the little problem they're in now, and go and reap the rewards and gain the success over the years to come.
Oh, hopefully will. Well, no, Brian, obviously, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great speaking to former players, so I really appreciate you just taking out the time to come and speak to us, and obviously for everyone that's been watching it now, really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
Excellent. But thank you everyone as well for subscribing and watching tonight. We've got a few more former players coming up over the next few weeks as well, so please tune in for them. But just thank you for everyone for watching tonight, and hopefully see you again soon.